Now, this is very worrying out of this last few days. The state of reading in South Africa, as indicated by the results of the Progress in International Reading Literacy Study in 2021, is very, very concerning. Here's the numbers. It's the fact that 81% of grade 4 pupils in the country are unable to read for meaning in any language. It's very worrying. That includes their home language, and that's the issue. The South African Human Rights Commission joining us this morning. It is Andre Gaum joining us, the Commissioner from the Human Rights Commission, making time. Commissioner Gaum, good morning. I appreciate your time, and this is horrifying to know that in grade 4, in any language, 81% of the children have no idea what they're reading. I mean, what did you make of this when it came out?
Yes, now the South African Human Rights Commission is indeed very concerned about the situation. This figure of 81% is also up from 78% in 2016, so it is higher now. And South Africa has ranked last out of the 43 countries that participated and experienced the largest decline of all the countries participating. Now, the Minister of Education expressed the disappointment at the PIRLS results and attributed it to the COVID-19 pandemic, which exacerbated already poor reading outcomes. While there is merit in the argument, indeed COVID had a huge impact, one should also say that 4 million learners have actually been impacted by this decline. And there is, unfortunately, no coherent plan across the country in all provinces to accelerate learning and address backlogs experienced by the COVID generation, or provide quality education to all learners who will come through the system. The Minister also, at the seminar she held on the same day when the results were released, the 16th of May, she listed all the interventions, quite a long list of them, aimed at improving reading in South Africa, including the revised national reading plan that she is working on now together with her colleagues. Unfortunately, the existing national reading plan seems to be a long list of items that have led to uncoordinated and ad hoc responses from each of the provinces. So we believe if a reading plan is to be successful, it must be very clear on the minimum inputs such as teacher training, learning and teaching support material, testing, time to teach reading, as well as it should have very clear timelines for implementation and have a specifically allocated budget.
Commissioner, let me ask you this very briefly, though, because there's a lot of interventions that you're listing, and you're quite right. But along with the interventions, that's an acknowledgement to me that there's a lot of problems to deal with. As the Human Rights Commission, I imagine you would agree with me, and tell me if you don't or you do, that this is a violation of basic rights to education, basic access to education in our country. The education system is failing our children. They're unprepared. They're not going to make it through school. Most of them, I would argue and contend, probably won't make it to matric. It's a tragedy, this, isn't it?
It is indeed. And therefore, the Human Rights Commission has developed a document that we call the document on the right to read and write, to make very clear that reading is actually a right. It is a central component of the right to a basic education. And you are indeed right that if that right, the right to read, is not realized, then it is a violation of the right to a basic education, which is an immediately realizable right in terms of our constitution, not limited in any way, and also not progressively realizable as the other socioeconomic rights are.
And I imagine as well, if we were to kick the tin a bit further down the road, Commissioner, as well, basic to access to dignity and a right to dignity and a right to fair income and a right to equality and living, it's going to have a knock-on effect on that later. If the education and reading levels are so bad now, chances are they won't get through high school, they won't get through matric, they won't get into university or tertiary education. It's going to lower the quality of our workforce, it's going to lower the quality of their lives. I mean, there is a very serious knock-on effect here. What's the implications to your mind of this?
No, I think you've described it very well, that it has a knock-on effect. And it is really the foundation of all education that follows So if things are not right in the foundation phase when it comes to reading, mathematics, and so on, then obviously the rest of the education of a child is built on a problematic and faulty foundation. And that is why we really need to, and I think all South Africans should take a direct interest here and assist however they can to and push that that all provinces would make the foundation phase their number one priority, and that is also reflected in their budget allocations.
Talk to me very briefly, Commissioner. Forgive me, as I say goodbye to you, last question. When you call on all South Africans, and I would agree with you, you call on all South Africans to do what they can to improve education. The point is this: most of us aren't involved in education. We don't know where to start. We wouldn't know where to begin. It comes down to the politics, the ministers, and their lack of will on their side, one could contend, and not getting this right. How does a minister fix this? How does an MEC fix this? How does a principal fix this? South Africans, ordinary South Africans, can't fix this. There are people who are in charge, who get paid a lot of money to do this, who aren't doing their job. What do you tell them?
Yeah, well, as far as the minister is concerned, and the MECs and the departments, as I pointed out earlier, we really need a reading plan that is clear on minimum inputs, such as teacher training, which is not what it is supposed to be, LTSM, learning and teaching support material. There should be graded readers available in every single classroom for every learner. Testing that needs to take place on a regular basis, not as it is at the moment, but on a regular basis, like, for example, in grade 3, grade 6, grade 8, and so on, but at regular intervals. And that there should be indeed indications, very clear indications as to what time teachers should spend on reading. And as I also mentioned, there should be timelines for implementation of this plan and allocated budget. But what I do want to say is parents have a very important role to play.
Of course.
And this Pearl study actually indicates that where parents love reading, it has an impact on their children. So their interest in reading and how they deal with reading, and parents play an important role, even preschool, but also when their children go to school, to grade 1 and so on, and grade R. They play a very important role in guiding a child at home in terms of reading.
So I couldn't agree more with you, Commissioner, as well. You can't just leave teaching up to the teachers. They also need to be brought up by their parents as well. You can't just drop the kids off at school and expect miracles. Teachers need to work in conjunction with parents. I couldn't agree with you more, Commissioner. Thank you. It's always lovely to talk to you. You made very good points this morning, and I'm sure you would agree with the Commissioner, Andre Gaum from the Human Rights Commission. Very good points. Timelines, so important when it comes to a child's education.